Educators Amplified, 1510 AM WRRD. My name is Earl Ingram. I'm going to be part host of this special event this afternoon. And I want to thank all of those who made this possible. Tim Slecker, Busted Pencils Radio, Milwaukee Teachers Education Association, WEAC Region 7, Schools and Communities United. It's all right, you can clap. Citizen Action, AFT Local 212. I'm going to turn it over to none other than Miss Joanna Rosado.
Thanks, Earl. Hey everybody, welcome to Educators Amplified Part 4, the gubernatorial edition. My name is Joanna Rosado, and I'm a public school teacher and WEAC Region 7 member. I'm so thrilled to be joined today by hundreds of other public educators and their supporters here at the Miramar Theater on Milwaukee's East Side, as well as those out there listening and streaming in. We are all set to have a great show. The Educators Amplified planning team have identified 5 topics for candidates to respond to today. Candidates, we encourage you to be you and present your intuitive thoughts. We'd like to establish a rapport and an environment similar to a healthy classroom, where you will be seen, heard, and valued. We do not expect you to have the right answer. We'd like to engage you in real talk about real education issues with real public educators and advocates. We encourage you to interact with one another and with the questioner. So all of our questioners will be seated up here and coming up this way. And so truly, we encourage it to be conversational with each other and with us. So let's get right to it. I'm the first questioner. So I'll kick it off with the first topic, which is testing and standardization. Okay? Everyone know what that is? Well, you're about to find out. School accountability measures based on standardized test scores has been the only reform that education policymakers have been committed to for 20 years. The recently released NAEP scores indicate that even with this decades-long focus, scores remain flat. Do you believe we should continue test-based accountability, and why? Who wants to kick it off?
And as state superintendent, I've been intimately involved with this topic for several years. And you're right, they're testing, weighing things regularly doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the right answer and that you're going to actually get at what schooling is all about. So am I a proponent of increasing testing? No, but I do believe that testing does serve a purpose. I think people need to think through on this topic of testing and standardization. The actual state test takes up very little of a student's time for average third grader. I'm just talking about the state test. It's about an average of 1 day out of the school year. Now, is that 1 day important? It could be doing something else, absolutely. But what do we need to do, in my opinion, is we have to find a way to better, in our accountability system, better recognize and reflect what actually is going on in schools. That's a critical thing.
Thank you. I do want to hear from the other candidates, yes. But as a classroom teacher, I would say it's more than 1 day. Okay. Go ahead.
So, I think there is one thing that we can say about testing, which is that its greatest accomplishment has been sapping the joy from the classroom, taking away teachers' joy in teaching and students' joy in learning. And I think the parents hate it too. I know this is a mom and a stepmom of 4 girls, and if we want to understand what's happening in the classroom, testing gives us a very limited window. It's a picture of one type of assessment on 1 day, and we have put basically all of our eggs and all of our political capital into that one basket, and it's made some of the testing companies very, very wealthy. We need a much different approach that restores the teacher and the teacher's autonomy and professionalism to the classroom as the central way that we are going to evaluate students and how much they have grown over the years. I think that's the best thing that I can say. If you look at the scores overall, the NAAP scores, they've really been flat. But if you disaggregate them, what you can see is that there have been increases for upper middle class students, for white students, but for working poor students, for students of color, the scores have actually gone down. So obviously the path that we're on is not working, and we need a divergent path.
Thank you.
Point where I think the best single thing that we could do for schools is to keep state and national politicians as far away from them as possible. We're testing kids to death. I heard Tony Evers say earlier that it's just one day a school year. Any teacher in the room knows that that's not the case. We're putting teachers in a position where they're set up to fail. We're not allowing them to use their professional expertise. They already know how to evaluate student performance. But instead, we've got politicians in league with private for-profit testing industries that are driving this agenda into schools, making teachers teach to the test, making them spend an awful lot of instruction time preparing kids for the test and then administering the test. We got to let teachers teach and students learn and trust professional educators to evaluate them properly. We need to do an about-face, a full turn in terms of how we deal with what goes on in the classroom and how student performance is evaluated. We're running for governor here, and we can't make federal testing requirements go away, but we sure as heck can provide the leadership and the political will to move our state in a very different direction. And instead of creating, this testing is really being done to give politicians ammunition to scapegoat teachers in schools. That's what this is about. And we can move that leadership in a different direction.
We are testing our kids too much. I think we all have said that. There's too much focusing on measuring outcomes. And we talk about the achievement gap, right? African American kids not doing well as white kids. We talk about now they call it the opportunity gap, I believe. To me, it's a gap, and a gap is a gap, and you have to fill it. I have 2 African American kids that are in school. I have a freshman at UW Oshkosh. I have a son who's in public schools in 8th grade. So, teachers aren't the end-all or the end-all to everything. It's not the teacher's fault that there's an achievement or opportunity gap. The fault a lot of times lies in what's happening in our community. So if there's not opportunity in communities, if we're not actually taking care of fair housing and people and children getting the ability to eat before they go to school, if we don't have opportunities for their parents, if we don't have actually a minimum wage that is good for everybody, if we actually don't take care of our communities, then we're not going to fulfill the achievement gap, because the teacher can't be the babysitter, the teacher, the mental health professional, and everything else. If you don't have wraparound services for kids to be successful, if you don't put the ability for kids to be successful, then we're not going to change the achievement gap. We're going to keep having forums like this and talk about it, and nothing's going to get done. So we can't just keep talking about testing and everything. We actually have to do something about it. And if we keep having town halls like this and talk about the problem without identifying the problem, then we'll just keep talking about the problem.
There's a place for standardized testing, traditionally the SATs, the ACTs, the LSATs, and so on. When George Bush and the Republicans got in, they put in No Child Left Behind. They have this rigid, mechanistic, anti-education idea that these testing will then spill back on teachers, and teachers, to basically keep their compensation and their ratings, would teach to the test. I think that is dead wrong. Barack Obama did the right thing in 2015 by passing the All Children Succeed Act, which modified that somewhat. But I do not believe that you can have standardized testing in grade schools and high schools and then somehow judge teachers by that and somehow judge performance only by that. I want fully educated people, and I do not want Republican policies that look at mechanistic, standardized testing outside of where it should be, which are the SATs and the ACTs. And so I would, in Wisconsin, make it very, very clear, we are not penalizing teachers, we're not doing anything, we're not teaching them the test, we're going to fully educate children.
Yeah. All right.
I do have personal experience besides talking to many teachers. My wife, Mary, in Germantown, speech and language therapist, was on M teams for 30 years, for more than 30 years, working with children with autism, children with all kinds of disabilities. And the paperwork at the end got so oppressive, it got so mechanistic. I would frankly defer to the expertise and the good faith of teachers. Just like At the state level, I'd restore local control. At the university, shared governance. So too with high school and grade school teachers. I would say, look, I would get rid of a lot of that paperwork, get rid of a lot of the rigid mechanistic approach to testing, and leave it to the discretion of teachers and principals and local school districts. The truth of the matter is the Republican Party has simply tried to impose standards for fake business reasons, and it doesn't work.